Hello and welcome to the Dyclif Dygest. Today's date is June 20th, 2015, and this episode of the Dyclif Dygest will probably be a little bit shorter than the previous two, and by that I mean a lot shorter, simply because, one, the NBA Finals just happened, and there's a lot of things circulating in basketball right now that I want to cover, and there's not as much news circulating in soccer or football. And I just feel as though I would want to focus on something more recent that just happened than some off topics that I've already covered previously that wouldn't necessarily make sense to touch on now this week. So let's go and get into it. The NBA Finals are now over, as predicted in 6 games by the Golden State Warriors. Overall, it was a pretty good finals to view, to watch in general. Ultimately, as a fan, you want to see it go to 7 games, but not this time around, not with the Cavs' current roster. It just wasn't going to happen. I mean, it's just so heartbreaking for a guy like LeBron James to go to 6 NBA Finals and only win 2, and to only win 2 with the Miami Heat especially. Like, you can't really tap into LeBron's mind and his thought process behind things, but you can take a general guess of what he's trying to think about. And no doubt what's going through his head is he wants to bring a championship to the city of Cleveland more than anything else in the world. That is his number one goal. And he's eventually going to do it. It's just a matter of time when. It might even be next season because of a couple things. But before I get into that, let's talk about... I think last time we talked about Game 4, but we'll just skip Game 5 because it was a blowout. I believe it was. But then Game 6, towards the end, it seemed like Cleveland was going to come back and possibly pull off one of the greatest shockers you've ever seen with J.R. Smith's shots. I don't know. Man, it's just crazy to see that ending of that game. It's like they went down by 16, 7, some ridiculous margin that it didn't seem like they could come back from. And all of a sudden, here they come, thanks to a few mistakes. It's just the way it is. You just need to close games, and that's what the Warriors have been doing all season long, and they finally closed this one out in 6. They didn't allow it to go back to their home court. Although if they did, again, a Game 7 in Oracle Arena, so hard to win for the Cavs. So, ultimately, the end of the series was pretty much exactly as I expected it to be. Although, Kyrie could have added something, depending if he got hurt or not. There's a lot of ifs and maybes that will never be answered, and that's just something we got to live with. We got to live with the cards that we are dealt, and in LeBron's case, he got dealt a 7-deuce offsuit, and it was awful to try to win with that hand. And he's going up against, a full house. It's not going to happen. Literally not going to happen. But in my personal opinion, I believe that LeBron James should have been Finals MVP. And I will say, if you're going to have to give it to somebody on the winning team, it would have been Andre Iguodala. Okay, I'm not upset with that. I'm not even really upset. I'm just saying my personal opinion that LeBron James deserved to win NBA Finals MVP. And if you can make the argument that, well, he was on the losing team, but since when does that necessarily matter? Because when you literally, in the most literal sense, you can take most valuable player in a series. Who is the most valuable to their team and to the series in terms of who's the best player? And that is LeBron James, without a doubt. He almost averaged a triple-double with like 36 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists. It's ridiculous, okay? I realize that Andre Iguodala held his own against LeBron, put up nearly 20-some points a game, somewhere in that region, came off the bench at some points in the series. I mean, he's well-deserved. He's one of my, I wouldn't say my favorite players, but, I like the Sixers back in the day with Allen Iverson. They had Andre Iguodala and all that. I've liked him ever since. So wherever he's went, I've kind of cheered him on in an undertone, I guess. Not really a mainstream fan, just there to cheer him on. So, with that said, I know LeBron shot 30-some%, mid-30s. But you have to think, this is like a Jerry West scenario, okay? Jerry West won Finals MVP and lost back in the 60s. And the reason why they gave him that award is simply because he was the most valuable player in that series, no question about it. LeBron James was the most valuable player in this series, no question about it. So I just believe that he should have won it. And now, this is just a hypothetical scenario. I would understand if, let's say, KD and LeBron were to face off in the NBA Finals. And let's just say LeBron ended up winning the NBA Finals and did a little bit worse than what Kevin Durant did. You would give that award to LeBron because he was on the winning team. But there was such a gap in between what Iguodala did and what LeBron did in the series that it doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean? It's just there. Personal opinion, LeBron James wins Finals MVP. But then you get in the argument normally Bill Russell hands out the award on stage, and how awkward would that be, But another point is, Bill Russell could just go to the locker room and give him the award or something. You could work something out there to where LeBron doesn't have to accept the award in front of what's left of Cleveland fans for some reason standing there, or Golden State Warrior fans who just cheered their team on in Cleveland to win an NBA championship, along with the team that just beat you in 6 games. He's not going to do that. That's just ridiculous. So that's one main reason why they didn't give him the award. And LeBron didn't really want to win that award. So that's the other thing. Of course, it'd be great to win that award in hindsight, but from LeBron's perspective, it's what's the point of winning that award if an NBA championship doesn't come along with it? And that's exactly what he's thinking. So with those factors in play, I can see why the people in charge of voting for Finals MVP went the direction they did. But some did vote for LeBron, no votes for Steph Curry, but majority said Andre Iguodala, and that's what matters, and that's what ended up happening. So there's that. Moving forward, what do the Cleveland Cavaliers do with David Blatt? Now, this is an interesting topic to bring up because this guy has won 16 championships from Russia. And you bring him in and you pay him an absurd amount of money to literally move him from Russia to the United States. Think about this from different perspectives. Don't just think about this from a fan perspective. Don't think about it from just a normal perspective or a player perspective or even a management perspective from the Cleveland Cavaliers side. Think about this from David Blatt's point of view. You leave Russia to come to the United States to coach one of the greatest players of basketball history. And you ultimately get to a point to where people think you're going to win an NBA championship. After Game 3, people genuinely thought the Cavs could pull that off. They were favored. BPI statistically favored to win the NBA Finals. Okay? And all this is back on David Blatt's shoulders. I understand that he's a rookie coach. I understand that he's made some mistakes in the NBA Finals that didn't ultimately pay off, like playing Mozgov for 9 minutes, not playing veterans like Mike Miller or Sean Marion, hardly at all. So it's hard to look at it from just every point, because it's like ultimately Cleveland wants to win. Who's going to give you the best chance to do that as a head coach? Is it David Blatt? David Blatt will probably say yes, because he's been to the NBA Finals, and if he had Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and Anderson Varejao, he could easily pull it off. And I think you could argue this. You could argue that if any coach had that roster with everyone healthy, they'd win an NBA championship. So now you really got to look at it. Do you keep David Blatt? From a financial perspective, yes, because you'd be losing money by firing him if you're Cleveland. From LeBron's perspective, here's what I'm suggesting here. You somehow keep David Blatt within the organization, and you literally make LeBron a player coach. Bill Russell did it. I don't see why LeBron can't do it now. He's basically doing it anyways through the eyes of the media. And all you really need is someone to run plays and just see things that LeBron can't see while he's playing. And basically, that's an assistant coach. An assistant coach could literally do a head coach's job. LeBron takes care of everything that's vocally happening, can amplify his guys, get them amped up. LeBron can do that. He's the vocal leader of the team, whatever head coach likes it or not. So, really, you just need an X's and O's guy. So, you figure that out, and then you continue on to do what you're doing. So, for me, it's such a tough call to make. It's literally 50-50 to what I would do if I was the general manager of the Cavaliers in that situation. But what I think they're going to do is probably get rid of David Blatt and bring in someone else that can really focus on the X's and O's of basketball, because that's going to give them the best chance of winning an NBA championship. And I think they'll see it, and I think that's what they're going to decide. Now, to who they're going to hire is completely up for debate if they were to fire Blatt, because there's just so many different ways you can go. You can literally do what they did last year and hire someone that's from overseas, from a different nation. But then again, that's like you're taking a risk there trying to hire someone that's not really used to the structure of the NBA like they did this year. So maybe they just repeat what they have. Or you can go the route of hiring a good college coach and seeing how they fare in the NBA, or hire someone within the league, hire someone within your organization. There's a lot of different routes they can go. But ultimately, I think we're just going to sit back and see what happens. So, I guess we will see. And I'll be covering that later on when it does happen, or doesn't happen. So, moving on to more free agency, like what's going to happen there with the Cavs. I expect LeBron to opt out and Kevin Love to opt out, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be back. It's possible. It is entirely possible that LeBron opts out and goes somewhere else, but I don't think that he can, at this point in his career, leave Cleveland again. That's out of the question. That cannot happen under any circumstance. If it did, he might just be the most hated person on planet Earth. And that's literally not an understatement. He might be the most hated person on planet Earth if that happens. I don't know about other galaxies, but there's a good shot that he'd be the most hated person possibly throughout the universe. And I think the universe pretty much covers it all, so I don't have to expand anymore. Kevin Love, it's hard to say what he's going to do, but I would say more than likely opt out and sort of reconstruct his contract with Cleveland, because in reality, Kevin Love knows that the best chance of winning a championship next season is with the Cleveland Cavaliers, although he's going to have to share some minutes, just some, with Tristan Thompson, Mozgov, and Varejao, depending on what they do with those three. But keep in mind, the Cavs got as far as they did without Anderson Varejao, and I thought that Anderson Varejao has been a solid starting center in this league for a decade, roughly, maybe less. And he definitely has what it takes to start at the center position. And it's amazing that they were able to trade for Mozgov when they did, because Mozgov definitely showed what he was capable of when he scored 28 points. And when you take into consideration that there's not a whole lot of people that can score 28 points in a finals game, and Blatt does only play him 9 minutes the game after that, it's something to think about. Like, how do you take that off the floor the next game? Those questions have to be asked. But back to Anderson Varejao, he suffered some extremely bad injuries in the past couple of years, and it's always sad to see, because those injuries that last a long time, the management start to lose faith in you, and it's like, what direction do we go in now? And it's starting to become that way with Derrick Rose. If Derrick Rose goes out for, half a season again, at what point do the Bulls say we have to get rid of this guy? And you don't. You don't want to get rid of Derrick Rose. He's, Chicago native. It's like he was born for that purpose. And when that purpose has bumps in the road and detours, it starts getting shaken up, and destiny doesn't seem like it's destiny anymore. It seems like a lie almost. I know that just took a turn for the worse and got completely deep, but it's the truth. Like, what Anderson Varejao, I forgot what kind of injury he had with his lungs a couple seasons ago, but that was a pretty deadly one. It's almost the same as what Chris Bosh had to go through. It almost seems life-threatening, but it's pretty vital. Like, it's not exactly the point of life-threatening. Like, life-threatening on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 10. And then what Chris Bosh and Varejao had, I would say is around an 8, which is pretty high. It's like not quite life-threatening, but it is dangerous and could lead to life-threatening stuff if it's not dealt with properly. So, with sports medicine and its development, I wouldn't question Anderson Varejao's return to the team and his progress. I think it can really be made in the front court. Like, the Cavs' front court next season could be deadly, because you have 2 power forwards that could start on just about any team in the league, and you have 2 centers that can start just about on any team in the league. So when you take that into consideration, that really needs to be used in the Cavs' favor. And when you think about it, the center position has been dying in basketball for the past couple years now. And if you really use Anderson Varejao and Mozgov effectively, literally cut their minutes in half and let them both play at certain points in the game to their fullest ability, you're getting basically one person that can play a whole game. You know what I mean? Like, if you split their minutes up, it's energy-wise and effort-wise and just production-wise, you're getting 2 people that can sort of do one overall collective job throughout the course of a game, no questions asked. Not in and not out. One of them is going to be better than the other, and you're going to get some sort of productive minutes out of both of them. You know what I'm saying? It's more productive to have both of them than just one person that plays the whole game and gets tired. So that's where they need to abuse it. They need to abuse the fact that there aren't other centers in the league that can do that, and there aren't any other rosters in the league that have the center depth that the Cavs will have next season if Mozgov and Varejao are both there together. So I think that is a key to the Cavs' success for next season, a front court. Having a good front court will win you NBA championships. In the Warriors' case, they kind of went small at times, but think in principle they had Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut. Still solid defensive front court that can get the job done, and they do their jobs well. So think of it like that. The Warriors, as good as a jump shooting team and as good as a run and gun team that they are, they're still very good defensively, and I think that's overlooked completely. There's a reason why the Golden State Warriors won 67 games, 83 overall, I believe it was. Yeah. So when you take that into consideration, you have to have good defense to do that. You have to to win NBA championships, you have to have good defense too. At some point, you can't ignore it. So that's just my 2 cents about that. The only thing I haven't covered from the NBA Finals is basically Steve Kerr's ability to have success in his first season as head coach, and I think I can chalk this up to a number of things. Number 1, Steve Kerr's experience in the NBA Finals as a player. Number 2, Steve Kerr's experience as a broadcaster. Number 3, Steve Kerr's experience as a management top guy in the league. Number 4, Mark Jackson's success with building a system with the Warriors and getting the players to play the way Mark Jackson wants them to. And number 5, the players that are around him. So Steve Kerr had everything going for him. That's not taking away any of his success, because he obviously did a terrific job in his first season. Steve Kerr kind of did what Mark Jackson couldn't do. And as much as I was against the Mark Jackson firing, because I thought Mark Jackson was a great coach on a great team in a great system. But in reality, the Warriors knew exactly who they wanted, but they had a huge risk of firing Mark Jackson to get Steve Kerr. Because if they don't get Steve Kerr, I don't think they're at where they're at right now. Steve Kerr was a perfect fit on a perfect team. So, I mean, it's like a match made in heaven is what it is. Because Steve Kerr's X's and O's top offense and the set plays that he ran with the Warriors were the Warriors' main reason for success. There's no question about it. You can see that. You can see the difference from Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr. So, ultimately, Steve Kerr, just an absolutely amazing job this season. Going back several months, actually, it's a lot of time has passed since the original end of the 82-game season. Mike Budenholzer won Coach of the Year, which I'm not going to argue that. He had a pretty good season, but don't you really think it should have been Steve Kerr? I mean, after the season's over completely, like the NBA Finals, it's easy to say that he's Coach of the Year because he's won an NBA championship in his first season. Like, that's insane. So, it's just something to think about. Like, in hindsight, you can say this guy did this at this time, but whenever this guy does this now, he's now this. Yeah. That's just my thoughts. But moving on to sort of a transaction that was made and more free agency news, and then we'll wrap this up. So, Lance Stevenson was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers for Spencer Hawes and Matt Barnes. I thought this was a good trade for both teams to make. Obviously, Lance Stevenson in Charlotte wasn't working out, and although Matt Barnes has sort of been a staple in the Clippers sort of mold what they're going for, he's sort of the guy that doesn't take anything from anyone else and stands up for other guys. It's a good thing to have, but you know, ultimately, getting a scorer like Lance Stevenson is exactly what the Clippers need at like a wing position of some sort. I know they like to run with Jamal Crawford. And I'll get the free agency news in a second that would help them out at the small forward position if they do land this free agent. But Spencer Hawes, I thought, would have helped them out a lot more. But he was very, very depressing, to say the least. Like, you figured he would come in for either Blake Griffin or DeAndre Jordan and put up some points and stretch the floor, but he just really didn't do that. It didn't seem like he didn't do that to his prior potential that he used to have, like his prior self. And I think that's a major reason why he got traded. So ultimately, the Clippers get Lance Stevenson, who can give them a lot of scoring, can give them some defense. He's shown that. But will sort of the antics die down now he's in a bigger city? You know, like, and you go back to the LeBron thing in Indiana. It's blowing in his ear, okay. I think he's moved past that. I think he's matured. I think he needs a change of scenery, and I just think he's gonna not become an all-star or anything like that, but he's gonna become a vital part of the Clippers offense next season, and maybe he can help them take that next step. We'll see. Now, on to free agency. One of the biggest free agents, besides obviously the huge ones like LaMarcus Aldridge, Marc Gasol, and those names, is Paul Pierce. And I know he's getting older, but he's getting wiser. And I think this would be a perfect time for the Clippers to swoop in and get Paul Pierce. So this is what their roster would look like. Their starting lineup would look like with Paul Pierce there. So you have Chris Paul, Lance Stevenson, Paul Pierce, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. You have enough young talent in DeAndre Jordan and Lance Stevenson there, and I guess you include Blake Griffin, although he's getting older now, to mold around a veteran like Paul Pierce underneath Doc Rivers, who has already coached him in Boston. So when you take that into consideration, I think it would be an excellent signing to make for Paul Pierce, because the Clippers really lack that outside jump shooting. I know that they have J.J. Redick, but they need a few more guys that can really light it up from the perimeter. Jamal Crawford and J.J. Redick are just about the only two on the team that can shoot threes on a consistent basis. And with Lance Stevenson, maybe not really a long-range shooter, but he might be able to take a step in and drain it more times than not. But, Lance Stevenson able to make the three, not necessarily on a consistent basis, but he's able to make it. So that's a plus. And then you have Paul Pierce, who's able to make it on a consistent basis. And he can give you other things. He showed why he's still an important part of this league for Washington last season, and it's entirely possible that Washington signed him as well. So, it's kind of up in the air because both teams need that small forward. And for Washington, I thought it was almost a mistake to get rid of Trevor Ariza when they did. I know that when you have Paul Pierce in front of your face, you can't really resist it. But Trevor Ariza has shown some quality minutes in Houston. He's a guy that can hit that corner three, hit threes in general, and play defense. Those are the guys that I like at the shooting guard small forward position that I would like to have on my team. Simply a guy that can shoot it from the perimeter and really give you a little bit of everything athletically and can really lock down and defend. And I think Trevor Ariza, this sort of goes back because, here's Trevor Ariza playing for the Houston Rockets. He's capable of defending, but it's West Coast basketball and East Coast basketball. I think Trevor Ariza's play fits better in the East Coast. And I'm really going to break this down. So we have East Coast basketball and West Coast basketball. West Coast basketball is more run and gun, high scoring. The pace is amplified by even more. So East Coast basketball is more slug it out, play defense, hold the other team to a certain amount while you score more. Those are sort of the objectives from both sides. And some can say that, oh, well, that's not true because the Memphis Grizzlies are in the Western Conference and they do this. But geographically, no. You know what I mean? Like, Memphis is, if you cut the United States, and we'll just say North America in half because there's Toronto, obviously. I can't just say United States. But if you cut that in half, Memphis is clearly on the eastern side of the United States, and there's no discussion about it. Like, that's a fact. If you go straight down Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Tennessee is to the right of that, and you can't argue that. So, geographically, it makes sense because I can't really name another team in the Western Conference off the top of my head that doesn't really play fast pace. That doesn't play fast pace and has that defensive mindset. So that's all I'm saying. Like, I don't know why it's like that. Like, I think it was mentioned that East Coast and West Coast teams play like the city itself. Like, Cleveland has this sort of grit to it. People that work hard and do this and do that. And then you have, like, Los Angeles with the flash. It's sort of like a theme. It's like what's going on around you within the city is kind of how the team sort of bask and forms itself to. I don't know for a fact that's how it works, but it really does seem that way, and I don't exactly know why. Because these teams draft players from all over the place. You got to keep that in mind. Just bring people in, just snatch them up, sign free agents, bring them in. I don't necessarily understand it, but that's just the way the league kind of has went to. So, and that all started with Trevor Ariza, I think, being in the wrong system, because you have Houston, who's a really push the tempo type of team, and Trevor Ariza, I think, would fit more in a sort of Memphis type style. I think Memphis with Trevor Ariza would have a great chance moving forward. So that's just me. I don't really have anything else to talk about. I kind of got out of hand with the region-based play, I guess you can say. So I think I'm going to call it a show here. Call it short. After the NBA draft is over, I'll have another show dedicated probably just to the NBA draft, because I'm that into the NBA draft. So again, really look out for the titles of these shows to what you want to watch, because the title of this show will probably be something along the lines of NBA Finals Special or NBA Special. So if you're into the other sports, really look out for it. And sometimes it'll be the same way for soccer and football. Football probably for the Super Bowl and other stuff like that will have a show just for itself, just because of the magnitude of the situation, how much there is to talk about within a certain topic. So always keep that in mind. But hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.